Greetings, friends. Prepare for another thrilling journey as we delve into Reddit's most bizarre tales. We're plunging deep into the quirkiest corners of the web. Grab your popcorn and join us on this adventure. Remember to hit subscribe and like. Let's begin. So yeah, I'm the bad guy here. My wife and I have been married since 2020. We met in undergrad back in 2018. We don't have kids yet, and we've both been navigating school and new careers. When we got married in 2020, I started working in a hospital ER right after graduating. About 2 years later, I enrolled in grad school, and my wife had to temporarily move for her new job to the same city where my grad school was based. I didn't move with her right away because part of my program was still online. During those 2 years in the ER, I grew close to a coworker who worked the mid-shift with me. We bonded over work since we often had patients next to each other. She supported me with tough patients, and I did the same for her. We shared a lot about our lives. There was nothing wrong with my marriage, but she was struggling in hers, and I helped her through it. She wasn't the type to open up easily, so when she did with me, it made me feel special. Somehow, I convinced myself that my wife was just jealous of a simple friendship, which upset me, and instead of pulling back, I got even closer to this coworker. Fast forward, and her husband found out about our texting and got angry, so we switched to other ways of communicating. We started using Snapchat, and texting, then GroupMe, and finally, we secretly messaged on Reddit. My wife got upset about my conversations with her, so I had to hide our interactions more. She still doesn't know I ever talked to the woman on Reddit. By this point, it was clear we were crossing boundaries, but we kept talking about our feelings for each other, and it just spiraled from there. When my wife moved to the new city in August 2022, leaving me behind for the online portion of my grad school, things got physical. One night, my coworker and I were on the phone, then FaceTiming, and things started getting sexual. Her husband was out of town, and she invited me over. Despite telling her no several times, I ended up going to her house. It felt wrong, especially with her kids there and the chance her husband could come home at any moment. I'd never cheated before, and it wasn't something I ever thought I'd do, but we had sex, and it was amazing. My wife and I had struggled with sexual intimacy. We waited until marriage to have sex, and were each other's firsts. So this experience made me realize that sex was a bigger issue for me than I had thought. The other woman praised me, telling me she'd never felt this kind of love before, and I became hooked on that praise. As we kept seeing each other, it turned into a regular thing. By mid-fall 2022, both of our marriages were struggling. She was fighting with her husband about sex, and I was making excuses not to move to the new city with my wife, using financial reasons as a cover when in reality, I wanted to stay close to the other woman. By winter 2022, I finally moved to the new city for a few months before starting my clinicals, but I kept seeing my coworker. Our affair became routine, and I regularly traveled back to the old city to be with her, which led to tension with my wife, who was growing frustrated with my constant trips. In spring 2023, while back in the old city for clinicals, our relationship continued as usual. She was still dealing with issues in her marriage, and I felt torn between two lives. We occasionally talked about leaving our spouses to be together, but always backed out, which left us stuck in a cycle of uncertainty. By August 2023, I gave her an ultimatum: choose between me and her husband. She initially chose to stay with her husband to try to fix things, but within days, we were back to our affair. We continued seeing each other several times a week while I was in grad school. This led to more arguments. She didn't want to leave her situation, yet she'd get angry at me for not spending more time in town with her. It felt like she wanted the stability of her home life while enjoying the physical and emotional support I provided, which her husband didn't. Near Thanksgiving 2023, I tried ending things again, telling her to make a choice so I could sort out my life. She explained it wasn't that simple because of her kids, which I understood but resented, feeling strung along. Despite that, we resumed our relationship, both emotionally and physically. As grad school wound down, my patience wore thin. In early 2024, after I fully relocated to the new city, we had fewer chances to meet. She was upset about my absence, and I grew frustrated with her indecision, which heightened the tension between us. By February 2024, I decided to end things for good and told her we needed to cut all contact. We managed to stay apart from February to May, but she reached out in May and we briefly resumed contact. We met in June, got physical, but didn't have sex out of concern for our spouses. Since then, our communication has been sporadic. I told her I didn't want to continue the relationship because I felt she was using me. We haven't spoken since late June, and I don't plan to. I know I'm to blame for the pain I caused my wife. She's unaware of the affair or the turmoil it's caused. I regret not being more supportive when she was alone in the new city. I'm torn between coming clean and fearing the consequences. I also worry about the other woman's family if my wife ever finds out and tells her husband. I'm determined never to repeat these mistakes. I think about the damage to my marriage and my wife every day, yet she remains in the dark. We've resolved many issues from the past, but the scars remain, and they're all my doing. Our sex life isn't great, but my wife believes it's improved. However, I keep unfairly comparing her to the other woman. I regret how these experiences have warped my view on intimacy. I'm struggling to figure out whether to confess before we consider having kids. My wife deserves the truth, but the fallout would be enormous. I know I'm an asshole and don't deserve the incredible woman my wife is. Despite our struggles, she's perfect and I've ruined it. Yet she's clueless. I gaslit her so much at the start of the affair that she eventually stopped ringing up the other woman. She suspected something once but gave up investigating because I got angry and manipulated her into dropping it.